Hey, my fellow writing addicts, I'm Marissa, and today we're going to talk about how to improve your writing. Now, we're not going to go into the usual stuff like the, show, don't tell, don't use passive voice, or at least don't use too much of it, don't use excessive adverbs. You've heard that a dozen. We're going to go way past that. The first tip I actually have for you is to read. Reading is so useful because when you read, you really broaden your horizons. You come into contact with stuff that you might not before. You find little tricks like, ooh, I want to use that, or ooh, I might want that in my story. And it kind of just broadens your horizons onto also styles, and maybe that style will work a lot better for you too. And you get to kind of experiment. It's fantastic. So my next tip is definitely to learn grammar. I don't even have enough time to really go into all the ways it'll help you just along your whole writing process, but focusing on writing is that it definitely, I think, helps your style. It broadens your horizons so you're not just stuck with the same things. You can use like maybe semicolons and different type of commas, like the Oxford comma. Please know what the Oxford comma is. Not only will it help the writing part, but it'll also be editing later. It'll just help you get through it a lot faster since you know what to look for, A, and B, since it already will be there, you should be just more like tweaking than you do your copy editing instead of trying to figure out if you should need a semicolon or a comma there, like what do you need? It'll go a lot faster. On top of learning grammar, you should definitely educate yourself on the art of writing, in that you should take like writing classes or seminars or, watching this channel, So, stuff like that. Sorry, shameless plug. But the reason I suggest it is because once you go there, a lot of people can help point out things that may need help. They can expose you to different styles you didn't think of before. They can give you little tricks that I can't because, everyone knows something a little different. I think it'll really bring, round out your writing. The next thing is, especially if you watch this channel or old podcast, do writing exercises, please. They're a lot of fun. They're short. They can be anywhere between 5 to maybe 20 minutes if you want a long one. It really, I think, kind of works out your mind like a muscle, like your writing muscle. I know it helped mine. The next thing is definitely if you're worried about maybe taking on such a big task of a novel, try smaller, try short stories. Because you definitely get discouraged when you're in the middle of a novel and it feels like it's going nowhere. You don't like your own writing, you don't like the story or the characters or anything, and you just kind of get lost in this pit of despair. It happens to everyone. But if you're really worried about it or you keep getting stuck there, try a short story, try maybe flash fiction, try something smaller. Then you can do the editing process on it, you can finish it and be done and feel better and you feel confident. I've heard this advice a lot, that you feel really great when you finish something. So that's why short stories are really important if you're really struggling with your confidence. One tip that I strongly suggest is doing all the planning before you start writing. And I'm talking about the outlining, unless you're a pantser who doesn't outline. Do the world building, the characterization. Heck, if you really feel like necessary, maybe design your character arc. I know Haley and I are kind of doing that some days, where we kind of wish to do that before, because we can then know essentially where it ends, so we can kind of figure out where it starts and maybe the middle. It just kind of helps bring it all together. So I feel you should definitely try this out. Some people find that they can't do any planning beforehand. They can do a little bit, they can do a lot. Play around with it, figure out what works for you, what works best. The reason I suggest planning beforehand is simple. It's just that you know kind of what you want when you go into it, so you don't have to stop. Because I know stopping in the middle of writing is kind of like a death curse for me. I won't come back, maybe in 2 days, but I won't come back to that moment of pure creativity. It just won't happen. Also, what I do find is that if you kind of know what little bits you want, you sometimes subconsciously write little bits in there without even realizing it. I'm still finding little bits. I'm like, I'm a genius. Or, most days, Haley's a genius. So, just how it works some days. Research for your story. And this is different, I promise. Sometimes you need to know the technology or little bits, like I have a book I'm planning and I'm going to look into animal types. I want to know more stuff about bird wings, something I'm really going to have to research. What I like about researching is that it can open sometimes a world of possibilities, but it also can sometimes save you from little whoopsies. If you're I want to have a character with a mental disorder, please research it, because sometimes you need to know all about it just to be you want to be sensitive to that type of subject, but also you don't want to accidentally hurt someone when you publish that work. And this could be making sure that like your romance is actually a romance and you didn't actually do abuse, stuff like that. But definitely on my main point before I ramble way too much, just do research for your story. I think it'll help you out. So my next tip is to self-edit. And I don't just mean, copy editing or line editing your own work. I mean reading through it and finding your strengths and your weaknesses. That way, when you write again later, you know what's going to happen, you can target it and make it stronger. And as time goes on, it'll build like a muscle to the point where you already know, like, oh, I got to make sure I look out for my dialogue or my action. Like, it's just second nature at this point. And it'll be stronger than it ever was, especially since you first started. And with that note, the next tip is kind of obvious, but I still feel like it bears repeating, is that don't edit during your rough draft. That's not where your editing should take place. When you're doing your rough draft, just sit down, write, and go all the way through it. My suggestion is you make notes, you make comments, but you don't actually touch it, because I used to do this and it would take me forever to finish like a chapter because I'd be like, oh, but it's not perfect. It won't be. Just accept that your rough draft is going to be essentially shit and just move on. Editing is going to make it stronger no matter what. And you're going to end up rewriting most of it anyways. So just come back. Just make notes and come back. The next bit of advice that I have is to imitate writers that you admire, whether it be like Cassandra Clare or Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, whoever, because naturally you're going to develop your own style. You don't really have to worry about breaching out of it. And if you don't, people will naturally along the way kind of point it out. But definitely at first, it's definitely okay. I know I didn't do it immediately at first, but as I got more into the literary world, I definitely started to take on more of a Charlotte Bronte kind of feel, where lots of long descriptive paragraphs and not too much dialogue, You've seen some books that are more dialogue heavy, like Jane Austen can be sometimes a little dialogue heavy with her Pride and Prejudice. Love Pride and Prejudice. But definitely I think starting out, it's okay just to imitate. Like, don't worry about it. My next tip is to find like a writing friend or a writing group that can help give you feedback. And it's important, I think, that they are writers themselves because they understand the craft. They'll just be outsiders to your own work, which means they get to see the strengths and weaknesses that you can't, which is great. They get to tell you like, oh, these elements are fantastic and you never knew. And, it sucks because they got to say, hey, these things need to be fixed. But on the bright side, your work will come out stronger than ever. And what's also nice is that they can give all that support and encouragement that, you really can't get from someone who isn't a writer, because they just sometimes just really don't get it. And that'll help, especially if you start doing a novel, because, that dreaded middle. Oh my God, holy fuck. It's murder. I know I touched on it earlier, but I really want to say it again, is that when you look back on your either rough draft or first draft, whichever you want to call it, accept that it's shit. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. There's only one author whose name I never remember that can write a rough draft and either barely have to edit it or never edit it, and just, we're not him. It's just a fact of life. It's okay that what you first turn out isn't fantastic or perfect. That's what rewriting is for. You're going to find little things to strengthen. You're going to have new ideas along the way. Sometimes stories just get away from you, or a character doesn't turn out like it should. Oh my God, I hate when that happens. But it's a fact of life. Just breathe and move on. Just make it better. And, I guess my last tip will be just to write often. I've said it multiple times throughout this video, but it's still very, very true. Writing is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it'll be, the easier it'll come to you. And the more you write, the better you become. It's just a natural thing. It's like any kind of art form. The more you do it, the better you are. Don't compare yourself, first day for first year you to 10-year you. You're light years away by that point. So just, whether it's a writing exercise or a short story or tackling a novel or even an epic, I give you props if you're going right to an epic. Just, write what comes to you. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Make sure to like and comment. And speaking of comment, please tell me what your favorite writing advice is. And also come see me at Twitter at writing_addicts or at Facebook at facebook.com/writingaddicts. And make sure to hit that like button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!